So this video is to discuss the return of Ike Ibeabuchi. I've actually discussed this guy previously. Real long-time subscribers to the channel, guys who are watching me a year, 18 months, 2 years ago will maybe remember that I did some videos on him, some videos on his fight with David Tua, and kind of discussing what happened in his career. I'll recap briefly for people who are newer to the channel. He's probably not a name who will be the first name on someone's lips if you're a new boxing fan, for example. But Ike Ibeabuchi was a undefeated heavyweight from Nigeria in the 1990s. He fought at a very high level, just below sort of world title level, but includes victories over Chris Bird and David Tua. And the David Tua win is particularly relevant because it's when David Tua was undefeated and when David Tua was kind of being looked at as a new Mike Tyson within the sport, But Ike Ibeabuchi beat both Chris Bird and he beat David Tua, and he became, I don't want to use the word a cult figure, but he became a figure of interest within the sport because what happened is he got involved in various legal troubles involving some sort of assault. I won't go into the specifics because I don't know the details, but essentially he was incarcerated and was released from prison in 2014, so missed the best years of his career due to time spent inside prison. Supposedly there was some mental health issues there. His nickname was the President, and apparently he used to refer to himself as the President in the third person, and had this whole persona and split personality, whatever. Anyway, point is, we've got a guy here, an incredible physical specimen, not overly different to a sort of Frank Bruno type physique, very impressive, muscular, bound guy. Of his 20 wins, 15 came by way of knockout. He had power, he was able to stop Chris Bird, but he could also box a bit. I've watched some of his old fights. I'm not going to say he was, Muhammad Ali in terms of the skill and in terms of the speed, but the guy had a boxing brain. The guy had some sort of technical capability, and he wasn't just a slugger. He could box, he could punch. The David Tua fight was a great fight. If you want to watch a good heavyweight fight, David Tua versus Ike Ibeabuchi. I think I'm right in saying that fight broke the CompuBox record at the time for the most punches ever thrown in a heavyweight matchup. And I think Ike himself was the heavyweight who threw the most punches in a heavyweight matchup because, it was such a brawl. Neither man took a backward step, and, Ibeabuchi won that closely on the scorecards. But amazingly, at the age of 42, having been released from prison last year, the guy's going to make a comeback. I understand that when he was released from prison, and he's been out for some time now, there was some issue about whether or not he would be deported, and as a result he's been semi-detained since. I don't know the specifics again, but apparently he's in good shape. A photo of him's emerged. He's 6'2", 245 pounds. He's been in training apparently, and he will make his return to the ring on April. He's hired Michael Kontz, who is very linked with Manny Pacquiao, and it's understood that his return will actually come on the Manny Pacquiao undercard in April. So a real big stage, big event, and a big opportunity for him to get his name back into the mix. If you look at what this guy was actually charged for and what he's alleged to have done, you could make an argument that he is not a figure who should be glorified. I appreciate that. As I say, I don't overly know the specifics of his case. But from a boxing perspective purely, I guess there's a kind of freak show element type interest that this is a guy who was very much towards the top of the heavyweight division, would have likely been involved in some, fairly substantial fights, and now he's coming back after all those years out, and he's looking to make waves in the heavyweight division. He's 42 years old, I believe, and obviously spending 10, 15 years in a cell, however long it's been, simply cannot be good. I mean, he won't have been in, will his reflexes have dimmed? it's not going to be as instinctive to him boxing as it would have been before he went inside. But a lot of the attributes he had, power, chin, his brain, his sort of boxing brain, potentially these are attributes that would still exist even at 42. And whilst he is an older guy, I guess his body's had a long time to recover. It's not like he's been scrapping for 20 years. He's had a big break, and potentially there is something for him to come back and do in the heavyweight division, because he was performing at a high level. We saw relatively recently Amir Mansour, who is a top 40 heavyweight, top 50 heavyweight, that sort of level. He's come out of prison in his 40s, and he's performed with extreme credit in some real high-level fights. I think he might have got a draw with Steve Cunningham recently, and he's now fighting Dominic Breazeale on the undercard of Deontay Wilder Arthur Spilka. So, he's a guy who's shown that it can be done. He's come out of prison, he's kept himself in good shape when he's been in there, and he's been able to make waves in the heavyweight division. I guess the difference with Ibeabuchi is he had performed at a much higher level than Mansour pre his incarceration. So there'd be hope that he'd already have greater education and more of an upside than Amir Mansour. But it's interesting. Apparently Manny Pacquiao's behind it. He's believes in second chances for people and is keen to have this guy on his undercard. It's certainly going to make a story. In terms of opponents, obviously that hasn't been announced. What I would say, 42 years old, you can't take it too slow. He's got to be looking at making waves quickly. In the next 6-9 months, really. He can't be. He says his ambition is to fight for a world title. He can't be taking 3 or 4 years to get there, because he'll be obviously well past his peak, should that be the case. So he's got to look at big name opponents pretty instantaneously. In fact, given how high profile an event this will be, it may be an idea to roll the dice and try and get a Bermain Stavern or a Bryant Jennings or a Tony Thompson straight in for this kind of event, because it's not going to do anyone any good to see him knock out a journeyman in 2 rounds. He needs to put himself in a position where he can make some money from the sport and position himself in a world title fight, because when you're that age, the clock is very much against you. As I say, with Ibeabuchi, he was such a physical specimen, and he had such a good chin, such good power. He wasn't. When I say he had good power, he's got a high knockout ratio. He probably wasn't the hardest puncher of all time, but he had well above average power. Stuff like that can stay with you as you get older. I just worry all the years without sparring, all the years without being in the gym, will his reflexes and instincts be dim to the sport? And that's what we'll see on his return. But very, very interesting story. Will be one to monitor, and wouldn't rule out him being in a relevant fight at some point in the next year or two. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think there's scope for Ike Ibeabuchi to be a relevant player in the heavyweight division? How do you rate his first career, and how excited are you to see him in the second part of his career? Thanks for watching.